I created this document to kind of walk you through exactly what I think your teacher wants from you in terms of a literary analysis of an excerpt. Your teacher's asking you to identify diction. What diction is word choice. So as you're reading through the piece, you want to look for words that have special meaning. They're loaded with special meaning. You're trying to anticipate the deeper meaning of what Hawthorne wants the reader to think while reading this piece. Remember that these are excerpts. You're not talking about the whole novel here. So in your opening line, you're only talking about in these excerpts, Hawthorne, and then et cetera, et cetera. That's what your topic sentence is. It doesn't have anything to do with the novel. It's just these two excerpts. Okay, so the purpose of an analytical paragraph is to move through and analyze the different sections according to what the teacher wants you to focus on. And in this case, Hester Prynne's outward appearance and how she feels inside. So let's take a walk through this and see. The young woman was tall, with a figure of perfect elegance on a large scale. So right away, we get just an image of a woman. Okay, there isn't anything extraordinary about that. It's just a woman who was tall and she was elegant. That's what women were supposed to be like. That's how he's starting it. She had dark and abundant hair, so glossy that it threw off the sunshine with a gleam. Now I stop there. Her hair, she had dark and abundant hair. There's nothing unusual about that. So glossy that it threw off the sunshine with a gleam. So that's where I'm going to start analyzing if I were you. Why would she throw it off with a gleam? Why would the hair throw it off with a gleam? Usually sunshine is something that is soaked in. It's accepted. But this sunshine is being thrown off. So it's to say that we don't have just a typical woman here who just accepts the sunshine. It's being thrown off, that her beauty is throwing off the sunshine. So there's something unusual about her. Let's go on. And a face which, besides being beautiful from regularity of feature and richness of complexion, had the impressiveness belonging to a marked brow and deep black eyes. Again, it starts off regular feature, rich complexion, but she has impressiveness, which women aren't supposed to have, right? This is reserved for men back at this time. The impressiveness belonging to a marked brow and deep black eyes. So there is something inside of her, the way that she looks, there is something very almost unusual about her femininity. It's almost masculine in a way. Because look how Hawthorne follows it up. She was ladylike too, after the manner of feminine gentility of those days, characterized by a certain state and dignity. So it's almost juxtaposing this idea that this must not be what a lady is usually like. If Hawthorne follows the sentence was she was ladylike too. Okay, so there's this idea Hawthorne's trying to get across that she is not your typical person, that she is not the typical woman, that she is up there as a symbol of someone who is like a freak of the population. And this is what Hawthorne wants you to see. Look, characterized by a certain state and dignity rather than by the delicate, evanescent, and indescribable grace which is now recognized as its indication. So usually a woman is indicated by this, but she's characterized by this, a certain state and dignity. And that word dignity is loaded there because it suggests that women aren't normally people who possess dignity, that it's the men, right? Women are usually delicate, evanescent, having grace. Okay? All right. So do you understand so far what this is? I took all of this and I basically walked through it, and I kind of picked out the very phrases that are loaded with deeper meaning. What you did and what you handed into your teacher was basically you just quoted a bunch of things and just said, these are her outward appearances, and this is her inner self. The second part is her inner self. And you picked the quotes that did indicate those, but you took it a more literal, concrete angle when you should have been a little more abstract. That is, what is not on the page? And a lot of the things I just said were not on the page. Now, who knows if I'm right? But that's the beauty of kind of analyzing literature, is to kind of talk about these things in a very philosophical, theoretical way, to try and get at what the author may have been hinting, right? And especially if the Scarlet Letter is a book about this extraordinary woman attempting to thwart feminist cliches and things like that, what it is to be a woman and women's rights and things like that. You know that this passage has to be loaded with stuff like that. Look at this next sentence. And never had Hester Prynne appeared more ladylike in the antique interpretation of the term. So right away, that word antique is something that's really old, something that's outdated, something not in use anymore. She never appeared more ladylike in the antique interpretation of the term than as she issued from prison. Okay, so she comes out of the prison and she is appearing ladylike in an antique interpretation. So who knows what that is then? Okay, so I'm trying to think. Okay, never had she appeared more ladylike in the antique interpretation of the term than as she issued from prison. So when she comes out from prison, this must suggest that women used to be viewed as these really kind of dark, strong, powerful, dignified people, right? But that was the way things used to be. I guess I don't know when, 18th century, 17th century, whenever the time before this is set. So then you have this here, this next part. Those who had before known her and had expected to behold her dimmed and obscured by a disastrous cloud. So what they're expecting, and you can paraphrase this, what they're expecting is for her to come out and be totally defeated by everything that's going on. But they were astonished and even startled to perceive how her beauty shone out and made a halo of the misfortune. This has to stand out for you, right? This whole idea, the continuing theme of light and sunshine, that her beauty shone out and made a halo. Like, when do people make halos? Like, what do you know about halos? It's like this symbol of divinity and heavenliness. But she's making a halo of the misfortune and ignominy in which she was enveloped. So she's taking all of this pain and all of the misfortune that's happened to her and turning it into a halo and saying, this is what makes me who I am. Ignominy, you have to know what that means if you're going to be able to write about it. And it means shame. Shame that's come upon her. And it may be true that to a sensitive observer there was something exquisitely painful in it. Again, Hawthorne is using phrases that are kind of like opposites. Exquisite. She's exquisite and painful. So people are looking at her and like, man, this woman is beautiful, but the thing that is defining her beauty is not this delicateness that we usually see in our women, but it's this fierceness. It's her taking her misfortunes and turning it into power. So I think that's what your teacher wants you to do. Now, it's very easy for me to do this because I've been teaching for 24 years and I've read this book and taught it several times. What you have to keep in mind is when you get a passage like this, you cannot speak simply literal. What you have to do is try to anticipate what the author's deeper meaning is and which words or phrases are really deepening that meaning. Like Hawthorne is hinting at something here, and there are certain phrases here that make that happen. And I'm hoping that I was just able to point this out to you. I won't go on about the second one unless you want me to, but I think this was as clear as I'm going to get right now. Please let me know if this was useful for you. Okay?